Okay, let's get to number one, which is the truth about Stan Lee. Stan Lee was massively influential in the Silver Age. Lee and Marvel spread his legend, making it seem like he was a creative genius behind the greatest comic characters ever created. The truth is much darker. Artists like Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, Don Heck, John Romita, and more did the lion's share of creating, with Lee mostly editing and sometimes writing dialogue for the characters. Lee wasn't the creative force that he and Marvel made him out to be. Reading Silver Age Marvel comics that are emblazoned with Lee's name while the artist did most of the work is an uncomfortable thing. While Romita kept his job at Marvel, many other artists weren't willing to play along with Lee and left the publisher. Kirby and Ditko, the creators most responsible for Marvel's early success, never got the recognition they deserved. Judging by the recent Disney Plus Stan Lee doc, Marvel is still interested in spreading a false narrative about the Silver Age. Now we know why they made this list. This is for the backlash on the Stan Lee doc. And let me tell you, I saw it. It is very much a it's a puff piece, and why not? Why they didn't put it out during his wait, I did think they did. It was his birthday or something like that. I got to tell you though, I do agree with some of this. I do agree that Jack Kirby does not get the recognition that Jack Kirby deserves. Not even as there is evidence now that he created a lot more than what was mentioned. We all know he's the sole creator of Silver Surfer. Marvel doesn't mention Kirby. I don't think this is a Stan Lee thing. I think this is Marvel and Disney and such. They made sure that Stan Lee is in every Marvel movie, but did not do the same for Jack Kirby. Now, granted, I'm not talking about putting his face on somebody, but in one movie, in order to get the Stan Lee cameo, there was a picture on the wall. They don't mention Kirby as much as Stan Lee. So I do agree with this to a certain extent. Unfortunately, it seems like the pendulum is swinging way too far to the other side, where Stan Lee is being downplayed to the point where he's done nothing. And we do know he was there for the creation of the characters in the Marvel Universe. And we also know that he is a huckster. He is the funky flashman. And without him out there loving the books, promoting the books, I don't think Marvel would be the same. We heard his voice every Saturday morning before every cartoon. We heard him out there talking about how great the comics were. Now, granted, Stan Lee, I don't know if a lot of you know, but during the latter part of the Silver Age, dropped out of comics. He stopped being a Marvel editor because he wanted to get Marvel comics onto TV and into movies. But still, people associated Marvel with Stan Lee. Not just the books that Ditko and Kirby and Romita did, anything. He is the face. And that, I don't think you could overemphasize the importance of Stan Lee to Marvel Comics. What says you, Eric?
Okay, let's start with Steve Ditko.
All right.
Very creative, also a self-absorbed prick. There was no room for compromise in Steve Ditko's world. It was either you agreed with him or he had no use for you. So yeah, there was a bit of a clash between Stan and Steve. As far as Jack Kirby goes, everybody. One of the things that's always fascinated me about the Stan Lee Jack Kirby dynamic as it went forward was it's almost like the camps assigned political parties to the two. And since this is a left-leaning industry in both the creators and the press, Stan was assigned the role of the evil Republican. Jack was the put-upon Democrat. When in reality, I don't know what their official political affiliations were, but it was probably closer to the opposite. Stan was a liberal of the day. Jack would probably have been more conservative. Jack was also his own worst enemy and a bad businessman.
Yep.
Now, I'm not trying to say that he wasn't screwed over, because he was. But this just in. Martin Goodman screwed Stan too. It's just, Stan didn't leave because maybe he didn't have any place else to go. But this idea that it was all Jack and all Steve, that's BS. Now, does Stan get too much credit? Yeah, he probably does. But he was the one out there promoting, selling people on the idea of Marvel Comics. He's the one that went to all the colleges, did the lecture tours, did the article, did the interviews. Jack just wanted to keep his nose to the grindstone and work. Now, again, that led to Jack had problems his whole life. Jack Kirby and Joe Simon broke up. So it wasn't just Stan and Jack. And he went to DC, and he went back to DC, I should say, and he ended up having problems there too.
Yep.
And as early as a year before he came back, he was already trying to get back to Marvel. So, I mean, Jack's kind of a tragic case in a lot of things. That he was. I said, without Jack, we don't have what we have today. But the same can be said of Stan. You talk about like the Silver Surfer. Jack Kirby puts a guy on a silver surfboard in the background and said, yeah, because if we had a guy that was going around the universe looking for planets to eat, it would make sense that he would have a herald. If it didn't go any farther than that, Jack may have never used him again. So, yes, he created the Silver Surfer kind of about the same way that Jerry Conway created the Punisher and Rob Liefeld created Deadpool.
Right.
It was other people
Cable
on and fleshed them out. And at this point, to quote the woman that should have been president twice, what difference at this point does it make? Because we got the fruits of their labor. I said, that's for other people to hash out. The Kirby family is always going to be bitter, and probably justifiably so. But blaming Stan for everything may not be the correct place to put all of that.
Dick Sargent York, that's not exactly what happened. Stan Lee was a part of the creativity. Now, some people say what Stan might do. They would have conversations and would talk about what was going to happen in the book, and they would make notes. Okay, we have this and this and this and this. And sometimes Kirby would go off and he would draw the comic and maybe add a few things or add a few characters. And it still says created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Whether or not Stan Lee at the topic in the conversation of the book would have included those characters or not. That's the big thing. There's speculation that Jack Kirby has created more of the Marvel Universe than given credit. That I don't think a lot of credit should be taken away from Stan Lee. I think more so credit should be given to the artists that he's working with. One thing that absolutely should be talked about when you mention what is it when people put something contributions to Marvel Comics that Stan Lee has done go far and beyond just Fantastic Four and the Marvel Universe as we know it, as far as the comic characters are concerned. At a certain point, Timely had very few staff members, to the point where it was Stan Lee, and that's it. So he actually had to call people in. He had to get his brother. He had to get people. Look, we need people to do these things. And he kept the lights on at Marvel through the copycat years, the years where, people are doing Westerns, we're doing Westerns. People are doing war stories, we're doing war stories. He kept the lights on before Marvel was Marvel. So you can't give Stan Lee enough credit sometimes for the creation. It, like individual characters, I get it. There's stuff to be talked about. From what I've heard, I believe that Ditko created more of Spider-Man than Stan Lee.
That may be true, but if Steve Ditko had stayed, I'm not sure we have an MCU, because I don't think Spider-Man would have gotten nearly as popular if John Romita hadn't come in. Because remember, I've said this before, Ditko's idea for Spider-Man was to basically preserve him like a fly in ember, never changing, always being aloof, friendless, and in high school. Stan had to talk him into graduating high school and at least getting him into college. And they introduced more characters, but if Steve had stayed, I don't know if it would have ever evolved past everybody hating Peter Parker, because that's the way he liked it. Because maybe that's how he felt about himself. Because Peter Parker was the only one that was right. Everybody else around him, he was like fools that he had to suffer. And I said Romita and Stan were on the same page. That's why I tell everybody, read those first couple of years of Stan and John, and you see all that character development for Peter Parker. and that led to the juggernaut. That's why Spider-Man is the one Marvel character on the comic book character Mount Rushmore,
right.
next to 3 DC characters. And I don't think we get that with Steve, and certainly not
I
with
think
Sam.
I think you're right about that, and I also think it shows a flaw of modern day comics where you have what was his name? Goodness gracious, they did the Marvel, and then they made him editor, and then he says, you know what, I don't like Spider-Man being married, so let's
Joe
take that away.
Quesada.
Thank you, Joe Quesada. He sees that Spider-Man should never change, and everybody after him seems to follow. And unfortunately, like you're right from the beginning, it was still in the Silver Age that Peter Parker graduated from college.
It was Bronze Age by the or late
really?
Bronze Age. Yeah,
I
he
thought that was
graduated.
before.
High school was issue 28. College was issue 185, which would have been like 78.
Oh, okay, because I remember it's the one where he's standing over. You've got the graduation.
That was Bronze Age.
Okay. Point being, though, is it's not that far. It's only 10 years?
Yeah.
In the character's history, and he's
14.
already moved on?
Yeah, 13,
Okay.
14, whatever.
And you're making me just look worse and worse, but thank you.
No. I would say genetics and a good camera are doing that, sir. But.
There you go. All righty. All right. But yeah, when it comes right down to it, yes, I am of the camp that I don't think that Stan Lee should lose any kind of credit for creating the Marvel Universe as much as others should get the credit they deserve.
And you know damn well this asshat that wrote this article was dying to add and he was groping his nurses.
Yeah, that was one of the few stories that came out at the end of Stan Lee's life. I hate when people pull out that one video. I actually made a video mocking it where Stan Lee's like, hey, just remember, true believer, we do the stories of the people outside your window. You know, trying to tell, basically he was talking to us. That was when OGCG was in full effect, and we got a backlash from Stan Lee because somebody wheeled him in front of a camera and said, chastise him, Uncle Stan.
Gosh, it's almost like if you can't go back and find that speech, just find any speech by Art. Never mind. You know where I was going with that.
Yep. I always say the world outside the Marvel offices now is right next to. They put their offices right next to a gay bar, and that's it. Okay, so anyway, wasn't that issue 225, Breen? It was issue 4. Yeah, that happens quite a bit. I don't have the memory for it. He does. Go figure. Alzheimer's is setting in early for me.
He has a teleprompter. That's what Eric has.
There you go. By the way, Maranya is pointing out, you mentioned Kirby having problems at DC. One of the problems Kirby had was that he found out he wasn't a good writer. Maranya is pointing that out right now. That I enjoy a lot of his DC work, like Devil Dinosaur, The Eternals. No, you're not going to correct me on that one. Okay. But no, I actually do enjoy the New Gods and Mr. Miracle and all that kind of stuff. But
and they're not bad. They're not bad stories. I mean, I've read them, but if you also when the series, like when Byrne did his New Gods and Simonson did the Orion series, you can see what it's like with writers now. Without Jack creating the characters, there's nothing for them to improve upon. And that, to me, that's kind of what made Stan and Jack work so well, was you did for that time, you had them working together, and that gave us a universe that now allows, it's allowed for multi-billion-dollar MCU, and they're still around for guys like this writer to criticize.
Yeah, I do also, by the way, like the fact, and you could tell Kirby wasn't the greatest of writers. He goes from DC where he's like, hey, I got this idea. There's these gods. And then he goes over to Marvel and says, hey, I got this great idea. There are these godlike beings. They're, it's the Eternals is the New God's light. So, yeah, what you gonna do with that? Anyway, there you go, gang. 10 reasons why you all suck for liking Silver Age comics. I'm paraphrasing there, but that's basically it. What do you think of the article overall? Do you think it was hard hitting? It obviously went deep into every point. It made me realize that I need to hang up my Bob Haney Teen Titans. But how did it make you feel? Like no more Justice League in the Silver Age?
I don't know. Maybe we should ask the Invisible Man next to me.
But there you go. Those are our takes on everything. Thanks a lot to everybody for hanging out with us and in the chat and everything. I think we literally made a 10-minute video for every topic. But keep an eye out. Thanks for hanging out with us. And as always, thank you very, very much for watching. Have a good night.